A bit of history. Muck, Moonshine Life Recipes Group. Armed with the knowledge that muck is the magic term, I hit up Google and came across an absolute gold mine of a document. Beyond just talking about muck, it describes the Jamaican rum-making recipe in far more detail than I'd ever imagined. The 1906 document, titled, Report on the Experimental Work Jamaica. Sugar Experiment Station, can be a challenge to read. The terminology it uses is somewhat arcane. But it is detailed and full of surprises. In excerpting the original text below, I've slightly reformatted it to tease apart meaningful sections. Before you read the text, here's a quick primer on some terminology you may not be familiar with. German rum, essentially rum concentrate, exported to Germany for dilution with German-made neutral spirits. This reduced the high import duties that Germany imposed on foreign spirits. This style of rum is differentiated from the common clean style, which uses mostly the same ingredients but doesn't include muck. Acid, acetic acid, in the form of cane vinegar. As implied in other parts of the text. Marl, a calcium carbonate or lime-rich mud which contains clays and silt. Lime, a soil additive made from pulverized limestone or chalk. The primary active component is calcium carbonate. Skimmings, the debris that collects on the top of the boiling fluids and is skimmed off during sugar and molasses production. Excerpted text. Flavored or German rum. These rums are made on estates having old-fashioned boiling house plant where the manufacture of sugar is of secondary importance. The usual common clean materials are employed and in addition, flavored. Acid is prepared from cane juice or skimmings in the usual way in a succession of trash cisterns. A muck hole, outside the distillery is the receptacle for the thick matter deposited from the dunder, and the washed dead wash bottom, to which is added cane trash and lees. The matter consists to a large extent of dead yeast and is therefore highly nitrogenous. It undergoes slow fermentation and putrefaction and its acidity is kept low by the addition of marl. When ripe it contains large amount of butyric and higher fatty acids, both free and combined with lime. It is added to a series of acid cisterns outside the distillery where the butyric and other acids are set free. This complex acid material is the flavor. The flavor enters the wash after fermentation has begun owing to the presence of acids in it which are injurious to yeast. The fermentation is prolonged and the sugar is never very completely fermented out. Fermentation lasts 9 to 10 days and the dead wash lies for several days longer. An example of the kind of wash follows. Capacity of fermenting cistern 2,000 gallons. Skimmings fresh 620 gallons at 12 bricks. Dunder 760 gallons at 24 bricks. Acid 220 gallons at 8 bricks. Molasses 200 gallons. Flavor 160 gallons at 8 bricks. Although it may take several read-throughs, the information it reveals is quite fascinating. While we typically think of rum as made entirely from fermented molasses and yeast, here we learn that Jamaican rum is quite a different beast altogether. Percentages are rounded. 30% molasses skimmings, 40% stillage from prior runs, 10% acetic acid cane vinegar, 10% molasses, 10% muck aka flavor. In addition, we have some insight into exactly what makes up the muck. Semi-solid materials settled at the bottom of the wash, pre-distillation. Semi-solid materials at the bottom of the dunder, i.e. the wash after it's distilled. Cane trash, the field residue remaining after harvesting the cane stalk. Lees. In the context of this document, lees is the residue at the bottom of the still retorts. To sum up, muck is essentially a biological reactor for generating acids that eventually turn into yummy esters. It's fed refuse from various parts of the rum production process, and its pH level is carefully nurtured via the addition of marl to keep it in humming along or dormant, as necessary. Bringing this back to the present, the 1906 wash recipe from above generally lines up with what Vivian told us Hampton Estate uses. Vivian mentioned cane juice, water, dunder, and muck. He didn't mention acid or vinegar, to the best of my notes and recollection. All the ingredients he listed are churned into a mixture and at the appropriate time, just prior to distillation, or added to the fermented molasses. 11 parts of diluted, fermented molasses to 7 parts of the aforementioned mixture. The mixing occurs in pits in the ground and is driven by injected air bubbles. So what of these stories about outdoor muck pits in the bare ground? I asked Vivian that exact question. His answer was that they do store a semi-solid version of the muck in the ground, as a form of long-term storage for the dormant bacteria. Distilleries commonly start and stop production. Left alone for long periods, the happy, flavor-causing acids in the muck pit will turn it into less desirable forms. By carefully adjusting the pH of the muck, it can be put into a semi-stable state, where it can be stored in an earthen pit. Vivian said the pit is slightly bigger than the size of a human grave. Although we did not see these dormant outdoor muck graves during our visit, my friend Nicholas Ferris of the TheRumCollective.com did, and he shares a photo in his Hampton estate write-up. In addition, my friend Dan Biondi gave me permission to include his muck grave photo from Hampton estate here. While I've only grazed the surface of the biochemistry of esters and muck, the BostonApothecary.com blog goes far deeper down the rabbit hole of the chemical reactions going on in the muck pit and rum wash. It's worth checking out there. Muck hole, not dunder pit, post for all the hardcore details. All of the other Jamaican distilleries we visited told us that they don't use muck. Instead, they produce their higher ester count rum via a very long weeks fermentation process. Also, it's important to note that all distilleries, including Hampton, make different Marcus recipes, and that Hampton may not use muck in every mark. And what of those tales of dead bats and goat heads? We didn't see any, but given what we saw, rotting goat heads would simply be yet another day at the office for a muck pit. When I asked Vivian about the tales, he shook his head and smiled. His theory: those tales likely originated back in the day when there were far more distilleries, big and small, legal and illegal. He believes that the stories may be just an attempt to throw off one's competitors by sending them down a false path, one laced with goats and bats, apparently. At the start of our Jamaican rum distillery expedition, our tour group adopted the name and hashtag Dundercats. At every distillery we asked about dunder, likely amusing the distillery staff who couldn't understand our extreme interest in the post-distillation sludge in the stills. But at Hampton Estate we finally came face to face with what we sought, albeit by a different name. The reality of high-ester Jamaican rum turned out to be both very similar and very different than what we thought we knew. Leaving Hampton Estate, I realized how fortunate we are to still have a distillery firmly planted in the traditions of rum's storied past, yet still making amazing, funktastic rums for the world to savor. Cheers. Moonshine Life Recipes Group.